Alright, so 8.3a, actually it's not A, it's just 8.3, this is a one-day lesson. Graph and reciprocal functions. We're going to do two types of functions over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. And what you just need to do is understand that these are the two different types of functions and recognize what's going to be different about them. I explained the overall picture to you to eliminate the confusion. I don't like, and what I used to have issues with in math class was that my teachers would show me something and then they would have me give all my energy to learn that process, and then a few days later there'd be something that looked just like it and I'd use the process and they'd say nope, that doesn't work there. Well, I'd rather tell you now that this only works in certain situations, but what you should notice is that this has a number on top with no variables, and that actually has a variable on top. So what we're going to learn today only works when there's just a number up top. Tomorrow we'll talk about what to do whenever there's a variable, but again, general idea, this is called a reciprocal function, and I guess it's just because there's just a number. Again, everything else means nothing. You could put a +5 out there if you want to, but again, the key idea is that on the fraction, one just has a number, the other one has some sort of a variable. This could even have a x squared plus 1 on top. Anything could be happening with that, but again, the key thing is your reciprocal function is just a number on top. They're pretty easy to graph. Let's just look at the parent function and find some general characteristics real quick. In general, the graph is 1 over x. I don't have my graphing calculator. Forgive me for a moment, I gotta pause the video. Okay, so getting back to what I was saying, f of x equals 1 over x. Couple things you just want to think about is what is the illegal value. Of course, we know we cannot have a 0 in the bottom of the fraction, so 0 is not going to happen. And what happens is x approaches the value from the positive side. So in other words, if I was to take and put this graph as, again, looking at the positive side only, 1 over, or 1 divided by, approaching 0 would be something like 0.5. And so you notice 0.5 is 2. But make that smaller, so 1 divided by 0.4 would be 2.5. 1 divided by 0.3 gets a little bit bigger. 1 divided by 0.2, again getting closer to 0. Notice the number gets bigger. And 1 divided by 0.1 is 10. Now, based off of what we know about numbers, that's not really close. What's close would be 1 divided by 0.001. And notice how big that number is. What about 1 divided by 0.0000001? And notice how big that number is. What's happening is when you're approaching the number that's illegal, which is 0, from the positive side, it means that you are taking 1, and I want you to imagine, because remember this is a division problem, what is 1 divided by a very, 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 very small amount. And what you're going to get, if you take any number and cut into an infinite number of pieces, you're going to get a whole bunch of pieces, which is why the number gets bigger. So it approaches infinity is what it does. And as it approaches from the negative side, again, just do 1 divided by negative 0.000000001. So again, if you want to know what's happening pretty close to that number, just pick a very, very small number pretty close to it, and notice that you have a negative 1 followed by 11 zeros. So again, a very big negative number is what's going to happen because you're dividing by a negative. What happens as it approaches positive infinity? Well, here's where you have to think a little bit. If you take 1, this is where your number gets small. This is where if you take x and put a very, very big number, what I was discussing earlier was wrong. This is where it works. If you take x and cut into an infinite number of pieces, you're going to pretty much approach 0. Okay? That symbol means approaches. And if it approaches negative infinity, again, you're dividing by a negative big number. You're going to get a very small piece that approaches 0. But again, it doesn't matter because it still approaches 0. It doesn't even matter if it approaches negative 0 because there's no such thing as negative 0. It just still approaches 0. And so if you were looking at the actual graph of what this is and you did 1 over x, I wanted to do all that just to show you because the graph itself doesn't really do you justice unless you understand. Here is your graph. And what you'll notice is that because 0 is an asymptote. I'll try to zoom this in a little bit more. Zoom box would be 1. Actually, no. Zoom. Just zoom in. And of course, I messed up the center. So, looking at this first off, you notice that it does not touch 0. The second thing is that as it goes through, and you saw on the regular zoom that it approaches 0 from as you go out this way towards infinity. It also approaches 0 as you approach negative infinity, and that as you approach, as you go to the left, which is x approaching negative infinity, your graph is going to approach 0. As you go to the right, which is again approaching infinity, which is what we talked about, the infinity part, it again is approaching 0. And then the first two part, as it approaches 0 from the positive side and the negative side, is that your graph is going to go really, really high, but it's never going to actually touch 0. Here it approaches your negative infinity right there, so again it just kind of looks like zoom 6 is zoom standard. So again, you notice that it's so close that it looks like it's not even there. Alright, so the questions that you just answered are calculus level questions. They help us to graph using analysis. We understand through patterns that every graph with this shape will behave similarly, and so the formula equation is here. And again, what you should be feeling right now is a sigh of relief, because you've seen the H, you've seen the K, and you've even seen the A. You just don't really pay attention to it because it doesn't do anything but affect the speed of the graph growth or decay. But again, you've experienced that, so our only job is pretty much shifting the home point and then locate a point on each side and sketch it and go from there. Because again, this is not a graph that you can really get very specific on, because it's really tough to do. So quick examples real fast before we go through this. 2 over x plus 3 plus 1. So what I would do is, and again you notice I don't even give myself a lot of room because you really don't need it, but you do want to recognize that that goes left 3. So that means that x equals negative 3 is your vertical asymptote. So 1, 2, 3, and then put your vertical asymptote there. X equals positive 1, which it means that it moves up 1, so your floor moves up 1. What you want to do from there is pick a point on both sides of that asymptote. So we'll check negative 2. So I'll put 2 divided by parentheses negative 2 plus 3, because again I want that to be part of it, and then plus 1. I believe that should work in this calculator. Order of operations, yep, plus 1 should give me a 3, which puts me here. And then I want to check a point on this side, which would be negative 4. So again, second enter gives me negative 1. So boom to negative 1. And this might seem weird to you, but what you should notice is that this is 2 spots up from the graph, and this is 2 spots above the floor, 2 spots below the floor. And again, from there you just pretty much draw a sketch that approaches that line, and approaches this line, and approaches that line, and approaches that line. That is the graph that you would have. That's it. So again, not a lot of work. It's just making sure you understand what's going on with it. F of x, 4 over x plus x minus 1 minus 2. Again, this means positive 1 is my asymptote. Again, that's my x asymptote, or my vertical asymptote as they would call it. Negative 2 means my floor moves down 2. You then again need to pick a point on the left and right of this asymptote. So I'll pick 0, and I will also pick 2. So 4 divided by parentheses 0 minus 1 minus 2 gives me the answer of negative 6. Is that even in the graph? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I guess it is. And then I will also do the second enter and choose 2 as my other point, which gives me the answer of 2. So up 2, and again what you should notice, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, 1, 2, 3, 4 up. Now you just draw the graph that kind of looks like a curve approaching both of these asymptotes, and that's what it looks like. Again, not the most pretty graph in the world, but the ease of it means that you should kind of look forward to it because it's really not that bad to do. Once you have the general shape understood and you understand what's going on, it's not so bad to do. 3 over 2x plus 5. Now this one takes a little bit of work because in order to get this number, you can't just say it's 5 because it's 2x plus 5, but again our asymptote is based off of 2x plus 5 equaling 0. And so that means 2x equals negative 5, which means that x is negative 5 over 2, or again negative 2.5, so back a half. Draw my asymptotes. There is no number out here, which means my floor is the floor. I don't need to draw a line for the floor. I just use the floor as it is. Remember, the only time I need the dashed lines is whenever the axis changes, or whenever the asymptote is not on the actual axis. So again, I will pick a point to the left and right, and easy enough, it doesn't even matter if that's a fraction. I can just pick a point anywhere. So I'll pick, what's that, negative 2 and negative 3. So 3 over, divided by parentheses, because again this calculator does not do it the way we need to. 2 parentheses, I'll just do times, I don't like all those parentheses. Negative 2 plus 5 close equals 3. And the other one should be negative 3 if we did it right, but we'll see. So second, enter, and it is negative 3, which is good. And again, all we do from there is draw a graph that approaches. Remember that 0 is my axis going down. And that's all. So again, easy enough to do. Today's assignment's a bit different. What I'm going to do is create a few problems for you to have to show some discipline and work it out first, and then watch me work it out for you. There's no way to teach you how to graph on Math Excel officially, and since the test that you're going to eventually take, hopefully you eventually take, will be on paper, you do have to know how to do that officially. So for now you need paper and pencil. It doesn't have to be graph paper. Just follow the video prompts and I'll pause it whenever you're supposed to stop. So for the first 3 examples, I'm going to just make sure that you see how I do it on paper, and then you'll see, and you can write these 3 down, but you don't really have to unless you just want the notes around for you to kind of see what's going on. So again, looking at graph A, first thing you want to recognize is your asymptote, so draw your axis. 0 is your floor because again that's not moving, but your floor does move up 1, so draw a little mark for 1, and then draw the best possible line that goes across. Because it's not moving left and right, we are going to check the points 1 and negative 1. So we put 2, which that actually shouldn't even be that bad because that's a 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. Plus 1 makes 3, so 1, 2, 3 should be it. And then 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2, and negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Yes. So that means go here, and again you should notice that that goes 2 spots up, 2 spots down, and again because that did not move, what we're going to do is just simply fill in the rest of that graph the way it is. So as long as that's the image that you have in mind, then that is good. Alright, give me a second. I think I have to live with it. I think this thing keeps focusing every time I put my hand in there, but it's not that I'm purposely trying to hurt your eyes. I just don't notice until I look up that I'm messing up the focus on the picture. So I will have to find a way to fix that on my own before we do that. But anyway, second graph. I'm sorry, that's not the second graph, silly. This is the second graph. So second graph here. Positive 2 means we want to go left 2, and again go left 2 and then draw your best asymptote through that. And I should not have drawn the asymptote, but mentally on the inside of my, actually I could draw it, but there's no number going up and down, so therefore that's fine, which means that my y-axis is my floor. The 2 points I'm going to pick to choose are -1 and -3. So I simply do, actually that shouldn't be so bad, because -1 plus 2 is 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3. 1, 2, 3. -3 plus 2 is -1. 3 divided by -1 is -3. And again, going from there, up, down. And again, I'm not going to grade you for the beauty of the graph, but just make sure that your curves are in the proper section of the graph, which is really all that matters. So again, in the first one, there was no shift left or right, which is why I did not need to draw a vertical asymptote. In the second one, there was no horizontal shift, which is why I did not need to draw a horizontal asymptote. But on the third one, which is the one we're going to do here, that means I should go over 3 and put my asymptote there at 3. This means my floor moves down 2. Again, the 2 points I'm going to check are 4 and 2, which again, I don't know why I did all that work on the calculator earlier. 4 minus 3 is 1. 4 divided by 1 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. Make sure I did that right before I do something stupid. 2 minus 3 is -1. 4 divided by -1 is -4. -4 minus 2 is -6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which puts me here. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. And then we just go ahead and draw the graph. Now, you might have teachers in the future who will want you to put 2 points in, because as you notice, we really don't know how it curves, whether it curves that way or down. But again, for me, in terms of what we're doing with us being out of school and not being able to get a whole lot of stuff going on from there, that's pretty much how I expect for you to do it. I do have 5 graphs. It's not a lot, so I know we're at 17 minutes, but for the most part, again, this should be pretty fast. If you need to stop and take a break before you come back to this, that is fine. But just make sure you understand, again, the video will pause whenever you're supposed to actually graph, and it's going to pause right now. Okay, so looking at this, should be right 1 and up 2. Sorry, that's a terrible asymptote. There we go. I then want to check points at 2 and 0. 2 minus 1 is 1. 5 divided by 1 is 5. Plus 2 makes 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which puts me here. And then 0. 0 minus 1 is -1. 5 divided by -1 is -5. -5 plus 2 is -3. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, it should be at 0. And so we should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 above and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 below, which is right. And so you have a picture that looks kind of like this. Just again, don't forget to approach the asymptote as much as you can. But again, these pictures are not going to be great because we have really no clue as to what it looks like. Actually, we can, just to verify real fast. 5 over x minus 1 plus 2. And so it's not too far off. Graph number 2, again, it's going to pause now. And hopefully after you've done it, you get to see that you should have gone left 2 and down 3. We should choose -1 and -3 as our points. -1 gives me a +1. 7 minus 3 is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It makes me think that we won't be able to fit this in the screen, because I think we're going to end up at -10 or something like that. But anyway, -3 gives me a -1. 7 divided by -1 is -7. -7 minus 3 is -10. 1, 2, 3, and feel free to be ghetto. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just make sure you have 10 marks going down and that you're around that mark as you go. And again, from there, we just want to know that the graph is going to do something like this. And I'm not going to graph it in the graphing calculator, because again, at this point, you either get it or you don't get it, and so you should be kind of texting me and asking me whatever questions you might need to ask me on this as you're getting stuck. Or send me your picture or whatever you might have had, and I might be able to figure out what you did wrong as you're going through that. Graph number 3. Hopefully you recognize that it does not shift left or right, which means that is my wall. The floor does move down 4. The points I'm going to choose are 1 and -1. Again, easy enough. 2 divided by 1 is 2. 2 minus 4 is -2, which puts me here. 2 divided by -1 is -2. -2 minus 4 is -6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, notice I went 2 up for that point and 2 down for that point. And again, draw a picture that approaches both of these asymptotes appropriately, and that is your picture. Number 4. The wall changed 3 to the left, but your floor did not change because there's no number there, and so 3 to the left means I do this, and I will check -2 and -4. -2 obviously leaves me a 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2, so I should be here. And -4 gives me a -2, so I should be here. And again, from there, draw a picture that approaches your wall and your floor at the same time. You just messed me up. And it's on video. I'm just joking. Don't look at me so mean. Anyway, last one. Weird. You might just try it out and see whichever you think might happen on this. But again, I think the numbers will work out, so I'm going to pause the video now for you to go ahead and try it. And again, it's okay to mess up because I'm going to explain it to you anyway. And then we go ahead and we check this out. Our floor should have moved 1 to the left. I'm sorry, our wall should have moved 1 to the left. Our floor should have moved 1 up. And here's where the numbers get interesting, because what we're doing now is we're going to take 0 and plug it in, because that's 1 to the right. 0 plus 1 is 1. Again, follow me carefully on this. 0 plus 1 is 1. 3 divided by 1 is 3, but that makes a -3 plus 1, which is -2. So again, let me do that. 3 divided by 1 is 3. -3 plus 1 is -2. So I go down 2 and put a dot. That means hopefully I'm going 3 above. Then I'm going to try -2. So -2 gives me a negative number. 3 divided by -1 is -3. This negative makes it a +3, plus 1 makes it a 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be 1, 2, 3 steps down, 3 steps up. And the only thing that this negative did, if you remember the negatives, they flip things over, is it took the spot that's usually here and it put it in this one. Because if you look back at all the rest of your graphs, they were in these 2 quadrants, and so all the negative did was flip it into these 2 quadrants. So honestly, that's enough. You can still learn how to graph if you come back to this video later, at least 3 hours later, and live life for a moment, let all this stuff get out of your head, and then fast forward to this part. Again, I did put up an assignment that has graphs and some challenge problems, so you do have a 8.3 assignment on MathXL, but again, you really can't learn how to do this process on MathXL because there's really nothing else you can do there. Again, feel free to contact me with any issues you have. I do love helping people learn. So again, at this point you can probably stop, although if you want to try some addition subtraction problems, I did put some tricky ones on there for you, for those of you who like to challenge yourselves. And it also has some graphs on there for you to get used to what the multiple choice version of things looks like. But other than that, good luck, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Good luck.
Why'd you interrupt me again?